Finishing the house meant safety. Walls, doors, light. Finally, a place to rest. But behind every door, the eldritch monsters were closing in. My journey through this dangerous world continues. Summer was coming to an end, the vibrant greens slowly starting to fade around me. Reaching the Bronze Age had been my driving force all summer. Now it was time to settle in and get cozy. We're in it for the long haul, after all. It was a slow morning. Not having windows in the house was already dampening my mood. But now that I had the bronze pickaxe, I could finally get my hands on some quartz for window making and carve out the basement further. 2 birds with 1 stone. Quartz had a chance of dropping clear chunks, which could be used for windows with no further processing. I hoped the deposit would yield plenty of them. A drifter had snuck in through the rear entrance. They might be simple-minded, but their instinct for seeking me out was razor sharp. I managed to stretch out the glass further by cutting it into slabs. Then it was just a matter of installing the window slabs all around the first floor. The house had once again used up all of my wood, so I stepped outside to chop down some of the newly grown trees. Using oak planks, I embellished the windows with a small trim, making them feel more integrated. Right as I finished working on the trims, a notice of a temporal storm appeared once again. I was in no mood to fight for my life again so soon, but it would be foolish not to be prepared. Things seemed a fair bit calmer this time, and my tolerance for the hallucinations was improving. After taking down the last of the assailants, it was back to work. My mind kept returning to that black coal deposit I had discovered earlier. Coal meant that I could skip the arduous process of making charcoal, and the clay could be used for ovens, bloomeries, and so on. The ruined settlement was on the way there, and despite going through this place twice, I stumbled upon a pair of cracked vessels. Luckily, I managed to grab both of them intact. Jasper, the merchant right around the corner, wanted to buy them. This time he was only interested in ones containing ores, however. I had picked one up from the abandoned mine, and I was itching to make my first trade. The coal could wait. After grabbing more cobblestone for the cellar, my eyes were drawn to a malachite vein jutting out from one of the cliffs. The vein was truly bountiful, a total of 80 chunks. I returned home with the spoils and went to grab the ore vessel. To my dismay, it crumpled in my hands. It was a blessing in disguise, though, as it contained a pile of tin nuggets, enough for 7 more bronze tools. Enough getting sidetracked. I wanted that coal. Hours of digging later, I emerged from the cave in the middle of the night, backpacks filled to the brim with rare resources. Luck was on my side, blessing me in unexpected ways. But there was always a flip side. Every unlit nook and cranny in the house seemed to be swarming with those monsters. I would need to address it, the sooner the better. With the new day came a renewed sense of determination. I figured why not extend the basement to match the entire footprint of the house. I'd rather have all my old junk piling up down here instead of outside where I was under a constant threat of ambush by drifters. After the frame of the basement was done, I spent some time reading about fire clay. An oven would allow me to start utilizing all the grain lying in my cellar. With the oven installed, it was time for a trial run. Watching the bread rise was mesmerizing. I was thrilled to have another delicious, sustainable source of food. I formed the remaining fire clay into bricks. They would allow me to build a bloomery able to melt quartz into clear glass. My next endeavor was to smelt a big pile of bronze for new tools and an anvil. I enjoyed smithing, as the various time-consuming steps allowed me to do little touch-ups around the house in between. I wasn't ready to start thinking about iron yet, but nothing was stopping me from being prepared. A bronze anvil would be necessary to work iron in the future. I continued chiseling the next day. Annoyingly, I kept hearing noises downstairs. Another unwelcome guest had found its way to the basement. I couldn't let these encounters derail me from construction. I knew my way around a stray drifter by now, and the list of things to get done before winter wasn't getting any shorter. I crafted 2 bloomeries and filled them with quartz. I needed the glass for the upstairs windows, and eventually a ton of lanterns. The days had started feeling a lot shorter now, but I was still no less exhausted. One thing I had been putting off all these months was the production of actual leather. Tanning was quite a complex process, involving a lot of time in barrels. First, I would have to prepare a barrel full of lime water. I would need to acquire fresh, raw pelts to soak, so naturally another hunt was in order. Armed with a new set of flint spears, I set out in search of game. The nature was beautiful in the eve of autumn, a tapestry of vibrant greens and yellows. Bighorns were dangerous animals when provoked. Some things I still had to learn the hard way. The wildlife this time of year seemed to be more scarce. Doing a single hunt for hides was starting to feel foolish. There was no way I could gather a meaningful amount in just a day. After turning the tide against the wolves, it seemed like my luck was improving. Or maybe I had just been hunting in the wrong areas. As the day came to an end, I managed to score 8 medium and 4 large hides. It was enough to attempt my first batch of leather. I soaked some oak logs in the remaining barrels to make tannin, the second step in the long process. The next day I grabbed the last one of the 4 books I had dug up from the ruins. The title of this book was Diet of Kings. The book was a transcript of a court hearing written by a scribe in the year 1318. I had no memory of what year it currently was, so this could have happened 10 years ago or 100. I continued reading. A command from the king of Unland started the exchange, summoning Master Jonas Falks to come forth. The lords and ladies in the crowd rose respectfully when Master Falks entered. He walked to the center of the court with his attendant in tow, bearing a collection of drafts. Falks addressed the crowd. "My lords, as I'm sure you're now aware, we face a nightmarish threat." He was talking about a disease or a plague. In his words, the plague was not overly complex. Quite simply, it was desolation made manifest. His attendant began laying medical diagrams on the floor. Master Falks presented each diagram, explaining the gruesome stages of the plague on the body. It would start from a darkening of the skin, then paralysis. As Falks arrived at the last parchment, the entire assembly leaned in to inspect it. The rot would eventually consume the entire body, leaving only an undistinguishable mass. The king interjected, "Is there truly no method of treating this malady?" Falks answered, "No preventions, your grace, save total isolation from the populace." He and others from the academy had not found any treatments against the rot. Falks spoke up again. "It is a certain death. However, I stand here now to offer you a better fate." As I put down the book, chills ran down my body. A brutal plague had ravaged the world, and in the center of everything was Jonas Falks. It was all connected in some twisted way I didn't yet understand. If Falks had rescued these people, where were they now? I desperately needed to find the next chapters of these accounts. The rainy season was finally over. The nature was calm, even strangely so, as if the world was holding its breath in quiet anticipation. It was good weather to do some work outside. I wanted to finish the path connecting the main house to the farm. Terraforming was slow going, but extremely rewarding. Unfortunately, the sunlight was quickly fading, so it was time to head back inside. The straw mattress I had been sleeping on since day one was getting old, so I crafted a double bed for my sleeping quarters upstairs. Chiseling furniture was a joy. I knew I could get sucked into it for days, building the most extravagant pieces. For now, I needed to keep a simple, functional style. For the first time in months, I slept like a baby. My joy faded as I realized it was almost noon. I needed to be more careful about my rhythm. The rest of the day I spent outside, terraforming. After dark, I meal prepped some stew, crafted a bookshelf upstairs, then spent some time working on the staircase. I gazed at the full moon. How many others were out there looking at it? Perhaps one day I would find them. It was yet another eerily quiet morning. I wanted to go gather peat, as it had been a great source of fuel. Since the nearest deposit was quite a ways from my homestead, I wanted to collect plenty of it in one go. I ended up clearing the entire site. Judging by the size of the stockpile, I was set for the rest of the year. The roof of the house was still unfinished, and the thatch would need tons of grass. I prepared a bronze scythe to speed up the gathering process. The hides had finished soaking in the weak tannin solution. Another 5 days in strong tannin, and my first batch of leather would be done. Early the next morning, I grabbed the scythe and went to harvest dry grass for the thatch roof. The tool worked rather well, a vast improvement over the flint knives. In an instant, the world descended into darkness. After a moment of confusion, I realized it must have been a solar eclipse. The first one I'd ever witnessed. Was it a sign? Whatever it entailed, I went to work on the roof with renewed urgency. Most of the roof was done, but like many things at the homestead, it needed another day. The temperatures were cooling down, and there was definitely a cold draft in the house. The spaces inside the house were too big and needed to be sectioned off to retain heat. The workshop windows were an issue, so I had to remake them to get a better seal. After some alterations, the house was looking airtight and ready for freezing weather. With the last bits of roof installed, I felt relieved. The house was technically finished, needing only cosmetic work from now on. Item by item, I was crossing off tasks from my list. Getting the path done had been an exercise in patience. It had used up a monumental amount of stones, and gathering them had taken hours off each day. Next, I started on the lanterns. Luckily, I still had leftover copper to start working into plates. I was still lacking proper weaponry, so I set my eyes on a longbow. I had all the materials for it, but the bow staves needed time to dry before use. I crafted 2 staves right away. I felt silly, as I could have easily prepared them weeks ago. The field was still looking healthy and yielded a large amount of vegetables and grain. As I continued making plates, my ears were filled with an endless cacophony of drifters outside, piling up behind every entrance. It was a helpless feeling. One day I could take them on, but for now I needed to stay locked away in my own home. I was determined to keep busy until the leather was ready. I used some of my leftover construction materials to finish the chimney and give the roof a wider overhang. The need for candles was constant, but at least the process was simple. Squeeze the honeycombs, heat them in a pot with some string, make new skeps for the bees. Many of the pine saplings had sprung up around the yard, and since I didn't need much more pine for construction, I wanted to start stacking firewood in the basement. With the storage room filling up beautifully, I continued the winter preparations by making linen armor. I didn't have enough for a full gambeson, so I opted for a helmet and pants instead. With the addition of 2 more lanterns, I would have permanent lights in all the main rooms. To my shock, a pair of drifters had started a nest in the attic, so getting a lantern up there couldn't have happened at a better time. The next morning, I rushed to the barrels. The leather was done, a total of 28 leather strips, enough to fashion myself 3 leather backpacks. With this upgrade, my inventory went from 15 slots to 22. I was over the moon, ready to tackle anything, and looking good while doing it. This called for a celebration. The past 2 weeks, I had been so caught up in making progress, I had neglected to pause, to reflect and recount my achievements. Life out here was what I made it. As I cut myself a slice of homemade blackcurrant pie, I made a promise. I would slow down and shift my focus toward cracking the mystery that surrounded this world. Fall had been a quiet season. With the house now out of the way, I was left with time to contemplate my next steps. My sights shifted from the future to the past. Many secrets awaited me on the road ahead.